Hello everyone, welcome to my kitchen. My name is Michael and it's time to use some of those fresh peaches that are in season right now. Let's grab some of those and we're going to make some peach jam. So let's get started with that. So I've got 3 pounds of peaches here. I'm going to make a half batch today to show you how to do that. So I've got 6 peaches here that are 3 pounds. I've measured those out. And I've got my water bath canner here. I'm going to be water bath canning them for you to show you how to do that. And that way you'll know how to get ready for that process when it comes to it. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about my water bath canner, then I'll go ahead and move it out of the way. So you want to make sure that your canner, you've got a rack in the bottom of it. You don't want to put your jars down into the canner without some type of a rack in it, because you don't want your jars banging around on the bottom to potentially break. So make sure you've got a rack in the bottom of your canner. So with my jars, I've got my jars that I've got sterilized here. I've got those clean. They're ready to go. There's a half pint jars. I've got 6 of them. If I need some more, I've got some more sitting to the side that I can go and pull those out. But what we're going to do with these is I'm going to take these and I'm going to put these down into my bottom of my canner. And I'm going to fill each jar individually until they start overflowing. And that way, when I get ready to continue filling the rest of the water, the jars won't be floating around on me because they'll be weighted down with the water in them. And I want to fill my canner up so that I've got 1 to 2 inches of water above the top of the jar. And I'm going to go ahead and put that onto the stove now. We're going to bring that up to about 180 degrees Fahrenheit. I'll put that Celsius conversion in the description box below. That way you've got the metric side of that too. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on the stove and we'll get ready to get that started bringing that up. And then I'm going to start working on my peaches. I've got my jars heating up now, and the reason I'm heating those up is you want to have hot jars with hot jam. That way you won't take a chance of cracking your jars by putting it into a cold jar. So definitely heat your jars up to about 180 degrees is what I'm going to be heating mine up to. And then when you put your jam in, it'll be set to go. Now let's get started working on our peaches. Like I said, I've got 3 pounds of peaches. I've given these a good wash, and I can tell by feeling of them that they are ripe. Some of the peaches you get might be a little bit firm, and you'll be able to peel those. I'm going to take the peel off mine with maybe one of these peelers. You can use a knife. These feel a little bit more on the ripe side than not. So I'm going to blanch these. And what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to take the bottom of it and I'm just going to cut just a little bit of a slit, just kind of into the bottom of it like that. Now that I've got the slit put in the bottom of that, I'm going to take me a pair of tongs and I'm going to put that into some hot water here and just going to drop them in there for about 30 seconds to a minute and just let that skin sit in there like that, and they'll just peel right off of there. It's been about a minute since my peach has been in that water. I'm going to go ahead and take it out, and I've got an ice bath here. I'm going to go ahead and drop that in there so that way those will cool down rather quickly, and I'm going to continue to work on my peaches. All right, now that I've got my peaches blanched, you should just be able to grab that skin and it should just come right off just as easy as that. So I'm going to continue to work on these and get these peeled. I've got my peaches peeled now, and now we're going to get ready to take the stone out and cut these up into nice bite-sized pieces. If you see any bad spots on them, you definitely at this point want to take that and just cut those off like that. And then we're going to go through and I'm going to cut it right down the side and follow that all the way around. And I'm going to grab it and I'm going to pull it apart. And that way we can remove that seed out of the middle. Now with these, I'm going to cut these up into little pieces. That way they'll cook evenly. So I'm just going to take the peaches and just kind of cut them up in little pieces like that. If you like big chunks in your jams and things, you can definitely leave them into bigger slices. But I'm going to cut mine up just like that. And I'm going to continue to work on these, and I'll be back in just a minute. All right, I've got my peaches cut up now. We want these to maintain that nice peachy color, and I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of lemon juice to that. And I'm going to use the bottled lemon juice instead of fresh, because when you're canning or preserving anything, the acidity that you need needs to be at a consistent level, and the only way you can get that is with the bottled. If you use the fresh, then as you go from one lemon to the other, the acidity level can change in it. So with the bottled lemon juice, you've got a constant acidity level in that. So use bottled lemon juice when you're canning or preserving. I'm adding 2 tablespoons. The lemon juice that you added to that's also going to keep your peaches from turning brown. So once the peaches are peeled and sliced and they're exposed to the air, they'll start oxidizing and they'll turn brown. You definitely don't want that to happen. So the lemon juice is going to keep these the natural color that they are. So now we're going to add in 2 cups of sugar, and I'm just going to put that over the top of that like that. And I'm going to take a spatula here, and I'm just going to go in and just give this a good stir around to get that lemon juice and that sugar over all of our peaches. All right, I've got everything mixed together, and as you can see here, we got some nice juice mixed in with our peaches and that sugar. And I'm gonna let this sit here on the counter for a few minutes and let these macerate to get all of that sugar and peaches and the lemon juice all mixed together for that nice flavor it's gonna get. So maybe 15-30 minutes, I'm gonna let this sit here. I'm gonna take one of my little bonnets that I use for baking my bread and things in and just put that over the top just to let that rest here on the side, and I'm gonna go ahead and get everything ready to go. My peaches are now ready to go. I wanted to let you look at these and see what they look like, how much more of that juice has come out of those. And that's gonna be nice because when we cook these down, that will thicken up really nicely on that. All right, I've got a small salad plate here. I'm gonna put that in the freezer and let that sit in there until these are done. And I'm gonna show you what I'm gonna do with these in just a minute. All right, now let's start cooking our peaches now. I've got my Dutch oven here. I've got a nice size one here to put these in. All right, now that I've got that put into that, I'm gonna go ahead and scrape all this out here because I don't wanna leave anything behind because there's a lot of sugar and things that's in there that we want into our jam. All right, now that I've got this turned up, you want a really sturdy pot to cook yours in. If you've got a stainless steel pot, that's really good. You don't want to use anything that's going to react with it. And so definitely stainless steel or one of these Dutch ovens that's got the enameling in the bottom of it will be really good with that. So all right, now you want to stay with this while we're cooking this. You don't want to go off and leave these because you don't want this to stick in the bottom because we want to bring this up to a boil. And as you're stirring it, as long as it consistently keeps boiled, that's where you want it to be. So once it gets to that point, we're going to turn the temperature down to about a medium low, and we want to bring this up to 220 degrees Fahrenheit. What that's going to do is that will pretty much tell me at that point, once it hits that temperature, that you've got gel phase for your jam. So you continue to watch it. I've got my candy thermometer here. I'm going to bring it up to that boil, and then I'll turn it down and I'll show you what it looks like once it gets to that rolling boil. All right, I've got mine up to a boil now, and as you can see, it continues to boil even though I'm stirring on it, so that's what I was talking about earlier. So let's turn this down to medium low, and we're gonna cook these until we get up to that 220 degrees. The total time from start to where it might start gelling is anywhere between 25 to 30 minutes. So definitely stay with these, let these cook down. And if you decide at the end there, if the pieces are still too big, you can take a stick blender and go in and blend some of that up. If you don't like it that chunky is what you've got your peaches cut up in. But you'll see at the end, they're gonna cook down quite a bit. So definitely just keep a watch on it. And if you've got a thermometer, check it at 220 degrees. And that should take about 25 minutes from the time it started cooking until it gets to that phase. So I'll come back and I'll show you when this gets done. My jam has reached 220 degrees. I wanted to show you what that looks like, how that has cooked down. And the way you can kind of tell too by taking it is if you take a spoon and you can move some of it off of it. If it doesn't completely fall off the spoon, then you know you've got a good gel on it. You can see on the back that it's staying on the spoon pretty good. I'm gonna go grab that saucer out of the freezer and I'm gonna give it another test. Now with this test, I'm going to take a spoon and take this saucer that I pulled out of the freezer and put just a little bit on this plate. I'm going to put this back in the freezer and let it cool down just a minute for about a couple of minutes. That way that'll simulate that cooling down. So as you're looking at it right now, it might be a little bit runny, but as it cools down, it will continue to gel up on you. And again, this is a no pectin recipe. We're not using any pectin in that. You're taking the natural pectin out of the fruit itself, and that's what's going to make it gel up. So I'm going to put this back in the freezer and I'll be back in just a second. All right, I've got my lids here now for my candy. I'm going to go ahead and put these on the stove and warm these up just a little bit above room temperature. I used to, back in the day when I was a kid, you boiled them, but you don't have to do that anymore. The USDA now says you don't have to do that, but I still like to warm up just a little bit above room temperature. So I'm going to put these on the stove down on low, warm these up while my test sample is testing. All right, I've got my sample now out of the freezer. I left it in there just a couple of minutes to see what it was going to do. So you can take your finger and you can run it through the gel like that. And if it stays apart, then you know you've got a good gel on that. So about 20-25 minutes on your cooking. And then if you've got it to 220 degrees, you're definitely going to get a gel on that. So you can see here that I've got a good gel and this is cooled down. Now I'm going to go grab my jars and we'll start putting the jam in. All right, so I've got one of my jars out of the counter now. You can see how hot that is. And we're going to take a funnel and I'm going to put jam in here and I'm going to leave a 1/4 inch headspace at the top. You want to leave that in there so that when the jam processes, that air will escape out of there, and you definitely want at least a 1/4 of an inch at the top of that. So let's go ahead and give this one more mix through here with this nice ladle that I've got, and I'm going to fill this up. Now I'm going to take my debubbler that I've got here. This tool is called a debubbler on this side, and then this side over here has increments of 1/4 inch on it. So it's 1/4, half, 3/4 up to an inch. So you can take it and you can stick it down on the side, and you can definitely gauge to see if you've got your 1/4 inch headspace. I'm going to take this and stick it down in the other side there. And you want to make sure if there's any air pockets in there, you want that to get out at this time. You don't want to eliminate this process, because if you don't do that and then an air pocket comes to the top, you might have bigger than the 1/4 inch headspace that's needed for this recipe. So we're going to check that now. It looks like I need just a little bit more, so I'm going to put just a little bit more into my jar. All right, I just tested again. I've got my 1/4 inch headspace on the top now. Now that we've got our jar filled up now, I'm going to take a paper towel, and I've got some white vinegar here, and we want to go around the top and make sure we get anything that might have got left on the top of it. Because if there was any sticky jam on the top, your lid might not seal to it. You wouldn't get a good seal on it. So be really careful, because this is really hot. And we're going to clean the top of your jar off just to make sure that there's nothing on the top of it to prevent that lid from sealing. And it also gives you one more opportunity to make sure you can check to see if your jars, if there's been any damage, or been any cracks or chips on the top. So that one feels really good. So now I'm going to take my magnetic tool. I'm going to take one of my lids that I've got here, and I'm going to put that on the top. Then I'm going to take one of my rings, and I'm going to put that down over it just like that. I'm going to grab a hold to the side of the jar, and you want this fingertip tight. And what that means is, once you get it to where it stops, just give it one little twist like that, and that's fingertip tight. It is ready to go into the canner now. I'm going to continue to work on the rest of these, and I'll tell you how many I get. All right, I've got my jars now and my canner. I put the lid on it. I've got it turned up on high. I want that to come up to a rolling boil. And what I mean by that is I don't want it to just start boiling. I want it rolling boil. Once it hits the rolling boil, I'm going to set a timer for 10 minutes. My altitude where I'm at is below 1,000 feet. So the timer for mine will go at 10 minutes. For water bath canning, I'm going to put a link in the description below of the different altitudes. So if you're at a higher altitude, your processing time will be a little bit longer. So definitely check out what altitude you're at, where you're located, and then you can check the link in the description box below, put the different altitudes and the processing time. So definitely where I'm at now at 1,000 feet and below, it is 10 minutes. I wanted to show you my pot. It is completely empty. So I was able to get 4 jars out of mine today, and you could get more than that. You might be able to get 4.5, 5 out of yours, or you might get less than that based on how long it took for your peaches to gel up. So based on how many peaches you have, you can definitely double this recipe, quadruple it, whatever it takes to get to the amount of pieces you've got. All right, I'll see you back in just a minute. Now I'm gonna go ahead and clean this up, and I'm gonna see if I can scrape me enough out of here and get a taste test on it. So I'll be right back. All right, I've got my jars out of my canner now, and my processing time again was 10 minutes. After my 10-minute timer went off, I turned the flame source off to the pot, and then I took the lid off of it and let it sit for 5 minutes before I took them out. So now you want to put these someplace where they're not going to be disturbed. These are really hot, so make sure you keep them away from prying hands if you've got children in the house. You definitely don't want anybody touching these until these cool down. We want to give these an opportunity to cool down for about 24 hours. And at that point, the bands on the top will be loose, and you will take the band off. Oh, if you've never canned before, that's the sound that it makes when the top seals down on the lids. There's little dimples on the top, and you can hear it as it starts cooling down if it's going to seal or not. So like I was saying earlier, take the band off. Then you can check to make sure by lifting up on the lid. This is a jar of my chocolate cherry jam that I made. So you want to take the band off of it, and you just lift it up by the top, and you can tell that the seal is there. If the lid comes off on your hand, then it's not sealed. That doesn't mean it's bad. That means you need to put it in the refrigerator, and you can use that one right now. So when you get ready to store these, you definitely want to store them with the ring off of them. And the reason for that is you might get a false seal on it. And that means if some reason, I've never had one ever happen before, but the seal could come loose on the top of it. And if you still had the ring on it, then the pressure from the ring might push the lid back down on it, and then you would get a fake seal again, and you might have exposed your food or your jam, as in this case, to any kind of bacteria, and you definitely don't want that to happen. So definitely store your product with the, oh, we got another one that did seal. Store your product on the can shelf without the rings, and then you can use the rings for something else. The one thing about it is with the lids, you do not want to use the lids again. That is a one-time use on these. You can use the rings again as long as they're in good shape. I always check mine. If there's any rust on any of them, I throw them away and just get new ones. They're relatively cheap. So like I said, just leave these out for 24 hours, test them to make sure you've got a good seal, and then they're set to go. As a reminder, when you're picking up your jars, make sure that you've got a tool that you'll be able to grab a hold of these with. You don't want to use tongs because this is really hot and the tongs could slip out and it would just be very dangerous for the breakage of the jar and then the hot food spilling out on you. So definitely make sure that you've got something that you can secure that with. And this is a really nice one. I'll put the link in the description box below where you can get these. But you'll just pick it right up out of the container itself. And if you've got some water on the top of it, that's okay. The water will evaporate on the top of it. Don't turn it sideways while it's trying to finish settling up. You definitely don't want to do that. So just pick it straight up. Like it's got some water on here, it will evaporate off of it because as the product cools down, that steam on that will just evaporate off the top of it. So let's give this a taste test and see what we've got. I was able to get just a little bit here, maybe a couple of spoonfuls, but the smell of that's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. Look at the nice color on that. We've got that nice orangey, peachy kind of color to it. Let's give this a taste. That is absolutely delicious. I think peach is going to be my favorite jam. I've always thought strawberry was, but this today is really good. I'm going to give it another try. This is exceptional today, really good. So today with 3 ingredients, we've got peaches, we've got a little bit of lemon juice, and we've got sugar. You can have peach jam with just a little bit of time. If this is your first time canning, I definitely want to hear from you how yours turned out. And if you've canned before, let me know if you do anything different in the comment section. I'd love to hear from you. If you like this content, maybe you might consider giving me a thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. And while you're at it, maybe you might want to check out one of these other 2 videos over here on the side. You might find something else you like. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye-bye now.